Hi, welcome. This is Dr. John DeMartini. This is one of the most amazing and inspiring shows that you can listen into. If you want to be on the edge of your seats, if you want to open up your heart, if you want to expand your mind, and you want to meet incredible people, stay tuned because you're just about to experience a transformative radio show that will change your life. And you're listening to the Dr. Pat Show that's coming up right next.
The following audio is via a Skype call.
Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show. Talk radio to thrive by. Powerful, inspiring, and coming to you live, bringing you stories of people like you and me, busting through and living life full out. Get ready to dare to wonder what your life would be like if you knew you could not fail.
Wow. Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's so great to have all of you tune us in and turn us on. You know, for sure, one of the things that I love doing is I love waking up and starting my day and realizing that, of course, I get to hang out with Benny. Hello, Mr. B.
Hi, Dr. Pat.
We've got a great little lineup going on here today.
You got it. We got another one.
I know. I think we're going to learn something here, though.
Oh.
I think Jason's going to teach us a little something right now. A little something. Looking
forward to it. I'm always willing to learn something new every day.
Boy, I'll tell you, this is something, you know, I think you're at the verge where you're young enough that if you learn this now, trust me on this, it will save you a lifetime of pain. Today, Jason Gregory joining me here today, and we're talking about effortless living. Now, I love this. I love being able to talk about this because this really is a lifelong journey for me. So what is it about Wu-Wei and the spontaneous state of natural harmony? What is it that Jason has learned and is bringing forth in his new book? And if we walk away with reading this book and understand several of these concepts, and I'm not saying you have to just learn them all, but several of these concepts, then your life will be forever changed. And for those of you that know who Jason is, you know that beyond amazing, he is a teacher, international speaker. You know, he specializes in helping all of us become more alert, more aware about Eastern and Western philosophies, what they bring together. You know, what is this idea of looking at comparative religion, spirituality? But the point that I love about this, what is it about the ancient wisdom, the current wisdom, that when we put it into our lives, put it into action, we get to a place of joy? And this is what today it's about. What is it that we can learn about effortless living? And is that something that all of us long for? Jason, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
It's great to be on. Great to be back on, Pat. I enjoyed our last conversation. I think it was about fasting the mind. So, yeah, it's a pleasure.
You know, I was talking with you. I was telling you that on Wednesday afternoons and on the weekends, this is my one pleasure that I really get out of a quite a busy and joyful career. But I take time out and I go play ping pong, table tennis. And I play with people that are from, you know, Eastern traditions. And I was saying to you something interesting. My experience is that the difference between winning at a game like that, but also winning in the game of life, has to do with what you're putting in this book. And I want to start with that because my mom said to me once upon a time, she said to all of us girls, she said, honey, girls, you all are going to make life as hard as you want it to be or as easy as you want it to be. And then she would say, the ball is in your court. Now, my mother had no idea what that ball in the court thing meant. She was not a sports person. What do you make of my mom's statement to us girls? And by the way, we looked at her like she had like 3 heads. So, it wasn't until I was older, right? But what do you make of that statement? How does it fit in to the concepts that, you know, you put in your book?
Well, you could look at it from many different angles, Pat. I guess it is. I guess it's age-old advice, isn't it? The ball is in your court, but we don't know what to do with it, really. So it's. I guess we get caught up in the bind of society when we're told the ball is not in our court and we need to strive to get that ball. So the Eastern traditions is completely different to that. It's about turning around and understanding that innate in our nature, we're effortless within our mind, and we don't have to excessively strive to achieve what we need in life. We can allow life to come to us a little bit, and in doing so, we kind of sink in with it and move with it as opposed to resist it. And, getting back to your analogy with, especially with table tennis, like, the ball is in your court. If we look at it like, for example, if you were trying to succeed in life, we need to get this very effortless state that we call, in sports they would say being in the zone, or being in a state of flow. This is when we start to disengage from who we think we are as this social persona or this person, and start to just move with life as it is from our more natural cognitive state. So meaning, like, for example, if you look at someone who plays basketball, most people are familiar with Kobe Bryant or someone like this, he can naturally get into this effortless state, but it does come from years, obviously, of, being on the basketball court and so forth and so on, but he can really disengage with who he is and allow that effortless state just to come forward and do its thing, and we all have that because that's our cognitive nature. It's just a matter of, how the methods and how we can sort of down regulate that sense of Jason or Pat or Benny and just live life as it is. The ball is in your court. It's just a matter of, I think, do we understand how we get into this state of Wu-Wei, and how Wu-Wei is actually our spontaneous nature. We're not really told obviously about that, because it's more to do with Eastern thought, especially all of us three coming from the West. Yeah. So we're not really taught anything like that. We're taught to be go-getters and go and take the world over. And in the East, it's much more different. It's about allowing life to happen and be more effortless, and understand that innate within us, we are. There's a Chinese word called zitran, and zitran means spontaneity of itself, and that's kind of what especially in Taoism, that's what they think of as a human being. We are like an organic flower. We're spontaneously of itself. So, the world is our oyster, but we just don't know it, you could say.
Yeah. And, this is really one of the things that is so important to, for all of us to really, I think, to really absorb in right now, because it is not going to get any less busy when it comes to the amount of information we absorb, how we absorb it. I was talking to a futurist about a week ago, and I had asked him a question. I called him and I said to him, Jim, I got a question for you about nanotechnology, because he's a person I pick up the phone and I need a scientific opinion. And I said, I want to talk to you about nanotechnology. Totally not related to radio or anything. It was a question that had to do with the future of nanotechnology and healing. But, as I'm talking about that question, he said to me, nanotechnology, which is the teeny weeny little teeny computers, like you can't even see them. Like they're like the size of like they can go in your bloodstream and seek out bacteria to destroy by programming them exactly to its frequency. And so he said to me, Pat, I've got news for you. And I said, okay, I really am looking at this for a lot of reasons. But he talked about what you put in this book. He said, we have to look at how much we are willing to stop creating the chaos in our lives. And, in other words, we need to look at a life that is effortless, that is flow. I studied with the gentleman down in California who created flow theory. And so he said to me, Pat, here's our greatest challenge. Pretty soon, not too much in the near future, we are not going to need phones. We're not going to need computers. We literally are going to have these computer chips that are embedded in who we are, and information will be available at a fingertip. So my question really for you, and what I want to talk about today we live in a world where we are bombarded by everything. This really leads to a conversation about how important effortless living is, because we have to begin to master this now and help our children and our children's children understand this concept. What is it about writing this book and writing it now that presents a message from you, Jason, about what is on the table for us to completely honor and absorb in the way we can live our lives?
That's a great question, Pat. There's a lot to unpack there. It's
Go for it.
Guess, well, I believe it's, again, like, I might be biased, but it is one of the most important books to read, I believe, because we are sort of moving away from, especially millennials are starting to move away from this sort of naturalness of life as well, so we're starting to, because of technology and because of the bombardment of, all sorts of entertainment and all sorts of digital technology, we're moving away from this, and we're stepping sort of into more of a rational mode, a constant rational mode of thinking. And if you look at in cognitive science, this is very unnatural. And this is how we're educating ourselves. This is how we're living our lives. We're primarily sitting in our prefrontal cortex most of the day. And this is not only is it cognitively disastrous, it's actually physiologically exhausting. For example, if you study on something for too long, you start to feel a bit dizzy and you just need to relax, So we're actually training our children in that now to, especially if you look at Eastern Asia, if you look at China and Korea specifically, they have a terrible education system in the sense that they might be well learned, the children, but they have no life, have no ability just to have fun, to play. I've taught actually in China and Korea, and when I've encountered children, this and that, they're always studying, like they never have free time.
Right.
And my wife is actually from Korea, and when she was in high school, they go to school from 7 a.m. to 11 at night.
That's right.
So it's just outrageous, It's and so this is what we're actually doing. We're trying to keep people in this certain part of the brain, the rational part in the prefrontal cortex, which is actually causing us to identify more with the ego, who we think we are, and not our not really our inner nature, which you would say is the hot cognition, which is what brings naturalness to life. It makes things spontaneous. It's that spontaneous smile you give a stranger. It's it's your ability to be great at table tennis. It's all of these wonderful things that make life beautiful. But we're stepping away from that because we're living in a realm now which is completely rational and completely isolated from our basic cognition. So, and this is not a complete beat up on rationality and so forth and so on, but it's more to highlight that we're sort of overemploying this part of the mind, which is kind of, it's confusing our natural cognitive function, So our cognitive function is naturally to use your cold cognition, where your prefrontal cortex is, where the sense of cognitive effort is, and then there's also the ability to to play and have fun and enjoy life, which is in the hot cognition. So it's kind of an ebb and flow, but we're definitely, I talk in the book about kind of the relationship between yang and yin in Chinese medicine, where yang is really this active element where you're always doing, and the yin is the non-doing, effortless part of effortless energy inherent within us that we don't even access anymore. So a lot of Chinese medical doctors say that we live in a yin deficient world now. So because all we're doing is doing, and this is what we're teaching our children. This is what, and this is how we're acting actually as adults as well. So we do have to sort of reorient our focus into trying to. We don't even, well, exactly. That's the paradox. You don't have to try to be effortless, but you just got to get back into. You got to get back into that effortless state that we naturally had when we were were children.
I entered in one of the greatest debates, and I'm still in it. And every time I say something like this, and as I'm about to say, it opens up a debate. But I want to start by asking you this question. You dedicated this book, and for those of you just tuning in, Jason Gregory, my very special guest, the book is Effortless Living. And I made a statement earlier, and I want to make that statement again. I want to repeat it. When you get a copy of his book, and when you start to read this, I would call you to look at this book and make a decision to try one construct, one tip, one tool, one learning, just one. Just pick one and then go to the next. And the reason I'm saying that, Jason, is that what you've put in this book, each of the ideas you mentioned, each of the invitations that you put in the book, each of them is so very powerful, right? That it begins to help us move towards effortless living. And I think this is the greatest challenge we have in our society. We wait till we get to the point of burnout, right? Overwhelm, not really room to do anything else. And then somebody hands us a whole bunch of things and says, do them. And that's not my understanding, especially when I think about Lao Tzu, when I think about, the concepts in the book. We're talking about harmony here, right?
Yep.
Harmony. And I want to ask you, in this book, when you're inviting us to liberate the mind and you're opening up the door for effortless living, we have to understand what the principles of the effortless mind are. And I'd love for you to take us on a journey of what they are. And Wu-Wei, many people may not know what that is in the world today. But let's talk about where to begin with the teaching.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it does come from, as you said, from Lao Tzu, and Lao Tzu's the original or the original Taoist. So Taoism is a philosophy from China, which people are probably familiar with. The Tao Te Ching, for example, it's the second most sold book in the world to the Bible.
Yeah,
and the core teaching in the Tao Te Ching is Wu-Wei, and Wu-Wei is basically, you can translate it in many different ways. You can translate it as non-doing, non-force, effortless action, intelligent spontaneity. But what they're all driving at is this kind of, this not forcing, this allowing, non-resistance sort of a way of being that we live our life. And so, just think of, for example, when you put a key into a lock, if you got to force the key in the lock, turn it, it's going to be met with resistance. But if you just jiggle it, the key moves effortlessly, and the door opens. So this is kind of a metaphor for how we can actually live our life, and that's Lao Tzu's point. Is that when we sort kind of align with this more effortless and non-resistive way of life, we move very effortlessly through life, which is actually very effective, which people may see as a paradox because, people think, especially back in Lao Tzu's time, Confucius was the one who was kind of promoting go-getting. You got to go and get the world. You got to, do to actually achieve things. And Lao Tzu was kind of thinking, no, what we've got to do is actually pump the brakes on that and allow life to happen a little bit for us. And then, he uses nature really as an example a lot of times, but he says that we begin to sort of like mimic the rhythms of nature, like in the same way that a dolphin mimics the movements of the ocean, the ocean's ecosystem. So, he's saying that we're actually the same. So, we can move effectively through society and through our life without meeting resistance, but we have to understand that we have to fall in line with this practice of Wu-Wei, this practice of non-doing and just allowing life to happen. Most of us don't just have a spare day where we just let life unfold for us. We're out there doing something or trying to achieve something. But Lao Tzu's saying that that's all well and good, but you need to allow life to happen for you. And then what that does is it begins to you begin to develop trust in the world, because you actually see that you're part of this world. You're not separate from it, which is one of the fundamental errors that people promote in the world, that we're separate from the world, that we're not part of nature. And then this develops this very isolated sense of self, where Lao Tzu says, you're actually a part of this. You're not separate from it. And then, but once you begin to let go of doing and align more with the effortless Wu-Wei, then you begin to start to align. You start to feel that sense of oneness deep within your consciousness, and you begin to move with it. So, that's the core of Wu-Wei, is basically allowing life to happen. And, and it doesn't mean that you stop doing. This is the irony that people think, oh, well, I just don't do anything. And it's like, no. What happens is you've disengaged from the sense of who you are, and you're beginning to align more with that effortless state in your everyday life. And all of your activities are happening, but very effortlessly, without the effort or strain on the sense of your own persona. So, you're still getting things done, but you don't have that sense of doing them. Even in the Bhagavad Gita, they talk about that. They have this idea of nishkarma karma, which means not being attached to the fruit of your action. So you're doing what you do, but you're not attached to it. And that goes back to the athlete analogy, where they've worked so hard at something that when they actually do it, it's very effortless. They don't have a sense of Kobe Bryant doing it. It's just unfolding of itself. Yeah. So to cut a long story short, that what Lao Tzu is saying is that can be our natural state of consciousness in everyday life, but we have to really find that, and we have to learn for a time. I would say put the brakes on in your life to reevaluate what you're doing, and then things will begin to unfold.
Well, we're going to talk about a number of different things, but I want to talk about a statement that I made on air about 6 months ago, and people are, I'm still getting emails about it from people just asking questions. I made a statement. I don't remember what the show was. I don't know what we were doing, but it's my belief. And I said, yeah. So what I've learned in life is that balance is the enemy of harmony. And I got, and I got, you could say, of course, I didn't explain it. I did explain what I meant in a later show. And then I read your book. And I'm not saying that you say that, but it's important for us to have a conversation about harmony. It really is. I think that, I think the greatest misconceptions we have right now for people that are trying to make changes in their lives is the ultimate achievement of balance, the word balance. My friends look at, my life, and they don't even know what to make of it anymore. But many people would look at me and say, your life is not in balance. And I would say to them, I completely agree with you, but my life is completely harmonious. The things I do in life, even if it is working as many hours as I do it with a sense of effortlessness. Yes. So I want to talk about that, because you're talking about harmony throughout this book. And I've read this book now twice since I got it, and I could not find the word balance. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, actually, I don't think it's in there either. It's
I don't think it is.
No, it's interesting you mentioned that, Pat. But isn't it funny, Jen, to get back to your original statement that people get so caught up in semantics, but too, you know. So, you know, I find that a lot with my work. I get emails and this and that about, you know, you said this and that, and it's like, oh my God, you know, like, don't get so caught in this, the whole semantics of it. And again, like, people need to define what they mean by balance, what they mean by harmony, you know. So maybe if for example, if I looked at Pat's life, your life may look like it is in balance according to me, you know. So we have to really define what we mean by those loose terms, you know. So I don't mention balance in there. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I should have. Who knows? But
you might have mentioned it, but I didn't find it in the context that our society talks about it. And that's what I mean. I mean, I come from a culture, and this is really an issue for women more so than anyone else right now. Women of all cultures, and that is our never-ending challenge to strike a balance between work. They call it work-life balance. And I remember standing up as an executive in HR and just saying out loud, I said, that is just one of the most ridiculous concepts I've ever heard. And at the time, I didn't understand the concepts in your book. And yet you're talking about looking at patterns of life. You're looking at the world, and then you point to something that I think sums it up for me. And that's what I want to talk about when we come back. Trust is unity. Trust. The word trust. I got to tell you, my advisors thought I lost my mind when I was in my graduate program, and I decided to study two things for 8 years: broken promises and trust. Let's take a short break. When we come back, don't send me any emails, okay? I already know the answer to this question. I didn't waste 8 years studying this. Let's talk about this when we come back with Jason Gregory, Effortless Living. And not sure if we have a copy of the book to give away, but we'll find out. We'll be right back.
Press play, fast forward, non-stop. We have a beaten path before us. It was all there in plain sight. Come on, people, we have all seen the signs.
Is traditional medicine not working for you? Do you still feel as if your health isn't 100%? Here at the Holistic Medical Center, Dr. Nushin Darvish and the qualified staff look through the dimensions of wellness and start a healing plan prioritized to your needs. Our physicians assess the whole you until complete health is achieved. Get the help you need by visiting drdarvish.com or call 425-451-0404.
If you're one of the millions of Americans suffering from anxiety, you probably know how powerless and out of control this emotion can make you feel. This is why it is so important to remember that anxiety is created by your mind, which means that you can learn to use your mind to uncreate it. Hello, my name is Dr. Friedman Schaub. My award-winning book, The Fear and Anxiety Solution, provides you with a step-by-step breakthrough process to understand and resolve the root causes of your anxiety and build a solid foundation of confidence and inner peace. If you're ready to take your power back, visit thefearandanxietysolution.com. That's thefearandanxietysolution.com, or call 866-903-6463. That's 866-903-MIND.
Tune in to Lucid Planet Radio with Dr. Kelly Neff. This hit show will illuminate your senses and empower you beyond your daily stressors and hardships. Renowned psychologist and author Dr. Kelly will captivate you with far-reaching topics and amazing guests as you wake to the greatest version of yourself. Learn to tap into your intuitions, think critically about our world, heal emotional and psychological wounds, and follow your passions to live your dreams. The Lucid Planet. Welcome home. Visit lucidplanetradio.com for more information.
How would you like increased health and vitality? How would you like to avoid the onset of disease as well as slow the aging process? This is all possible through a simple, safe, and natural process. Every day we are either moving toward wellness or away from wellness.
Hi, I'm Mary Jane Mack. I'd like to be your partner in achieving optimal health Contact me now at maryjanemack.com or call 425-392-0659. Visit maryjanemack.com.
Conscious Confidence Radio, a timeless wisdom with Sarah Main. Tune in each month on Transformation Talk Radio and join Sarah on an adventurous journey to the deeper level of meaning to move beyond today's world of constant change, confusion, and uncertainty beyond the shadow of fear. This hit show explores key concepts such as confidence, values, and attitude in a dynamic way. To learn more about Sarah and her work, visit sarahmain.com.
To the old school, to the old grounds, it's all about the new found. We are the newborn, the world know all about us. We come a long way since that day, and we will never look back at the faded silhouette. We come a long way since that day.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Jason Gregory is my very special guest today. The book is fabulous, Effortless Living. We're talking about, I call it Wu-Wei, probably because I don't know what I'm doing, and the spontaneous state of natural harmony. The book for me is so timely. There's so many things in the book. I'm trying to pick out some of the things that I think might be really helpful for people. We're not going to get to everything, but before we jump back into this, how can people find out more about it? How can they get their copy of the book? Tell me where we are with that.
Okay, so if you want to get find out anything about my work, you go to jasongregory.org. Mm-hmm. If you want to purchase the book, you can go to Amazon or Inner Traditions or any of those, and I'll give a free copy away to one of the listeners, I guess, today if there's someone who's lucky enough, I guess. I don't know.
Benny does such a great job at taking care of that. Let's do that now, Benny. 1-800-930-2819. 1-800-930-2819. First caller, we'd love to give you a copy of Jason's book. There's so much in the book. I know we kind of left people hanging before the break, so let's get back to that. It was hard for me to achieve balance in my life according to the standards in the United States for women to have equal parts of everything operating and then do that and still do what you talk about in Chapter 7, Trust and Unity. It is really a dilemma. And I don't remember probably when I went on Vision Quest, when I decided to give up the whole balance thing. I was relieved.
Well, again, like we were speaking off air, Pat, it's, how do people, what's the category that people define balance in? There's so many, and I always say that that's different for each and every individual, because some people just have unlimited amounts of energy and other people don't. Other people have, a limited energy reserve every day. So, for example, if someone is working in Wall Street, for example, and they're completely stressed and burnt out, I would say that they need to step away from that for a while to, try and, ground their life or, clear their head and get back into, to use, lack of a better word, balance. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, if you're looking at equality of time over the day for each and every activity or finding this work-life balance thing, I think that's a bit of an illusion, because that's not going to be the same for each and every one of us, So, I get that a lot, especially with writing, because people say, you speak about effortless living, but you get a lot done, you write a lot of books, and it's like, I love what I do, and it's not that I'm, not that I'm out of balance or anything like that. I'm just more in harmony with my life, and I just move, to what I'm compelled to do, So it's, and the day just takes care of itself, I'm not really sitting around with a calculator analyzing, I should have this much time doing this or this much time doing that with my wife and this much time, going to see a friend or whatever. I think that's a bit of an illusion. I think that what we have to find is more so harmony is about, and that looks different for each and every one of us when we find harmony in our own life, because it's not something that somebody else in the outside could probably say that, I don't know if you're harmonious in your life, but it's a sense. It's a sense of feeling that you have when you are in harmony with your life. There's a real sort of groove or rhythm to your life that you begin to feel. Now, that doesn't have anything to do really with balance. No. I would say that being in harmony probably is the real balance that we're looking for. So yeah.
And let's talk about it, because the thing that I love about reading this book is I could see along the pathway of my life. I could see, like, as I read the book and then I went back and read it again, I could see where the light bulb went on for a couple of these, right? And as I went through this, I really was struck on what you wrote about trust. And I think it's important to take a moment and talk about what you referenced when you referenced trust. Trust in the universe. I think you mentioned trust in the universe is your body. And I think these are concepts that are worth talking about. I don't think many people would have expected this chapter in the book, but I really love that you put it in here. How important is trust? How important is trust, and how important is this idea of trust is unity?
Yes, this is one of the most important. I think one of the most important parts of the book, because when you get down to the essence of Wu-Wei, as in living it, trust becomes the main component, the core component, because you have to have a trust in life, and this is. The irony is I always say to people that trust is the paradox of unity, because if you don't trust the world, if you don't trust your own life, then you're out of sync with the unity of life, with oneness, because you don't actually trust life. You're still looking at life as something separate from your own consciousness. So the whole idea in Taoism is to try and collapse that illusion into the reality that you and nature and the whole cosmos is one living thing, one living organism, as they say in Taoism. And trust is that part of ourself that aligns us with it, that brings us into sync with the universe, the Tao, as they use in China, the way of the cosmos, the way of the universe. And I use a really interesting example in the book. There's a part in the book where I talk about trust and the universe is your body, and that's a story about. There's a Norwegian ethnographer and adventurer, Thor Heyerdahl, back in 1947. He was famous for going on this expedition called Kon-Tiki, and so Kon-Tiki is basically this expedition that he went on with his small crew. And so what he did was he went to Peru and he built this balsa wood raft. So it was very loosely built, just with ropes, and there was a balsa wood raft. They didn't take anything. And so his idea was that, because he had a very sort of, as you were talking about, Pat, you always thought about this and thought it was kind of a wrong way of thinking, but this was the same with Heyerdahl. He thought this as well, and he grew up in a very secular nation, being Norway, and they thought he was just a nutter, like a real crazy person. And so he wanted to really prove that what his intuition is saying is actually right. So he went to Peru and he built this balsa wood raft, and he took no oars with him, nothing, and he just drifted out into the vastness of the Pacific Ocean. And he said, wherever it takes me, it'll take me, sort of thing. And so at first there was the problem of the durability of the raft, and as they went on, the balsa wood logs began to bind more tightly. They began to swell up with the water and bind more tightly, which made the raft more durable. And then later on, there was always the problem of food. And then every morning, what they found was flying fish were landing on the deck every morning. So they had fresh fish every day. And so the irony is that as he began to let go and trust the ecosystem of the ocean, they actually began to mimic the movements of a dolphin within the ocean. So they were moving effortlessly, following the path of least resistance through the Pacific Ocean. And the amazing part of the story is that they continued to follow this method, and they ended up landing on a distant South Pacific island called Tuamotus in French Polynesia. So that's 5,000 miles, roughly 5,000 miles into the Pacific Ocean. He traveled just on this little balsa wood raft. So, I use that as an extreme example in the book. I don't want people to go and build themselves a raft and just drift into the Pacific. But what Heyerdahl does show in that epic adventure is that if you can let go of your life and you can trust the world, then you'll be astounded at where your life will actually take you. And, the problem, I guess, with a lot of us now is because we're taught not to trust the world. We're taught to be skeptical of people and the way of the world, that we do end up in these kind of dead ends in our life where there's, we're trying this, we're trying that, and nothing works because we're not really trusting life. And
Yeah, but what I love about that story is that the analogy that I think of is how we're seeing more and more people step out onto that boat, onto that boat with their lives and their careers right now. We're looking at some of the fastest growing segments of entrepreneurs that we have ever experienced. I'm talking about postmodernization, where more and more people, and now we're finding more and more women are stepping out and they're getting into that boat. And, they're saying, where is this going to lead me? I'm willing to step out and I have my vision. See, you have to have a vision. The vision was, I'm going to get in this boat. Right. You know what I'm saying? It's like, he didn't say like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. No, that's not the story. The story is, I'm going to get in this boat.
Yeah.
So there's a clear intention and direction. And this is the lesson that, I love in the book about trust is, how I said, like, balance is the enemy of harmony.
Yeah.
I think doubt. Okay, this is just me now. I think doubt is the enemy of effortlessness. I think doubt, this notion of doubt, we don't talk about it very much. But when I read what you've written about trust, and I think about trust in life, and, I was reading this one line that you wrote. You said, when we are positive, we are not doubting. I'm sorry, I'm stuck on this chapter right now. I'm a little stuck. But I love what you wrote. And, you talk about, you say, in our speech, thoughts, and mannerism, we exhibit a propensity to doubt life. Yeah. Oh, boy.
It's true.
It is true. And it is groomed. It's groomed. You know what I mean by groomed?
Yeah.
That's probably not a good word. We groom our hair. We groom our nails. We groom ourselves, meaning we purposefully set out and adapt a set of behaviors and habits. And this is what my sense is for what you wrote. But I also love that you continue to talk about doubt. And you talk about the fact that we doubt because we've been taught that we are alien to this world and that somehow we do not belong. I read that and my eyes started to fill up with tears around that.
Wow.
There's so many people right now that don't feel they belong in this world. We're seeing it in suicide rates of young and old. But you have a takeaway here. And I want to talk about that takeaway if we could. While you acknowledge doubt and you say, yet in a world that feels cut off from life, we think of positivity as a disgustingly strange attitude. Yeah. I created an entire network of 10 channels called Positive Talk Radio. But I have been the Grim Reaper for a lot of years in my life. How do we get to this place? How do we get to this place? I want to hear what you've discovered and what your invitation is for people here.
Well, I really appreciate that you brought up doubt there too, Pat, because like you said, that is groomed in our culture. That is cultivated, through education, through the way that our society is taught us not to, that we're separate from the world. And so how can we trust, right? So doubt is you could say the opposite of trust, and I really appreciate that you brought up the fact of also the entrepreneurship, the recent entrepreneurship going on in the world. And I think that's wonderful because, a lot of people are jumping onto that boat, throwing themselves into the wilderness, and just seeing where it goes.
Yeah.
And I was going to mention that even to give an example of myself, because I remember when I left Australia back in 2008 and I started writing articles and this and that and about these sort of topics, I thought, I didn't know where I was going, but I know that this is what I wanted to do, and then the rest is history, so it started off very innocently, and then it is where it is now. So, that's what can happen if we do let go of that doubt. Now, to get back to the end part of the end of your question was how to live more, wasn't it? How to live more positively? Trusting,
trusting. I mean, if you live more trusting, okay, so this is simplistic, I know it.
Right.
If we live more trusting, we will live more positively.
Yeah.
I don't have any research on that, but I'm pretty sure that works for me.
Well, it is true, and if you do begin to trust your life, and just trust where it's going, then you will actually have a sense of more positivity, because doubt actually is a negative response, right? So doubt is a negative response to life. You're not sure where your life is going, and so we all fall victim of that sometimes, because life has a way of kicking you in the guts.
I'm not immune from that.
No, I think no one is. But the thing is that what happens when you begin to trust more is you begin to accept that even if doubt comes, that you can push that away and identify that as just a negative response to a situation that you might not be used to, or that you're afraid of, or an obstacle that you're afraid of overcoming. But if you begin to trust, then you look at obstacles differently. You know that, all right, life is going to throw these up, but I know that if I move this way or that way, I know I'm going to end up on the right path, because that'll be, if we use lightning, for example, lightning always finds its own way by following the path of least resistance. So, and we are all individual lightnings, so if we can just look at our life and begin to have a deeper sense of where our life is headed, then we'll end up where we need to be, in the same way that Thor Heyerdahl did. But you got to really have a firm conviction in that trust. If you keep identifying with doubt, then you're never going to get there. And so you have to really start to identify more with your true inner nature, as opposed to the social persona that's been developed by society through all of the socialization. That's the part of ourselves that keeps doubting. That's the part of ourselves that is separate from the world. But our deep inner nature knows intrinsically we're moving this way, because that's where you're going. And it doesn't matter if your ego wants to debate about it, because that's just where your life is headed. So,
yeah, I mean, oh my gosh, I love when I look at my life in a couple of different ways, and people that have listened to the show as long as they've listened, I always have a result in mind. I really am a results-oriented person that lives on the edge of abstraction. Look at my astrology chart with 4 planets in Sagittarius and 4 in Capricorn, and that explains it, right?
Yeah.
But I will always open with, abstract intuition. And here's what I want to talk with you about. There is so much in here that I can point to, especially when we talk about synchronicity and the language of the effortless mind. I am so struck by how important synchronicity is, and how often we think we are not players in the game of synchronicity. And I want to talk with you about that. this idea of these four, I hope you come back so we can talk about the four principles you put in here, the principles you put in here, because I don't know, 3 or 4, but I want to talk to you about them because they're important. The idea of vibration and rhythm and mentalism, these ideas are so important in looking at synchronicity and the power of our own intuition. What role does intuition play in this journey?
Yeah, well, it plays a big role. Just like what you said, Pat. It's intuition is kind of what would we say, is not being destroyed, but it's being suppressed in our modern world.
Yeah, suppressed. Mm-hmm.
Because we're being taught to be these rational creatures that are very materialistic and forget about anything that might be synchronistic in nature. Don't worry about that. That's just mere coincidence. So we're taught in this way, and we don't really know the inner essence of ourselves and also the nature of synchronicity. So synchronicity is very important, especially people think that when they think of Lao Tzu and all of these old Taoist sages, they think that they never spoke about synchronicity, but fate makes up one of the big cause of their philosophy. So they get out of the ideas of just blind causality, and they're more in the field of synchronicity and in fate. So when we begin to the irony is with synchronicity, especially from the Eastern view, is that when we begin to empty our mind more and we begin to be more present in life, instead of letting that separate part of ourself control our life, then the Tao begins to enter you. I know that sort of sounds metaphysical, but it begins to enter through your consciousness, and you begin to experience the synchronistic process of life because you are in sync with that universal energy. Because you are in sync with that universal energy, you begin to actually experience these synchronicities. And that doesn't mean synchronicities are always positive too. You need to people. No.
Yeah.
People need to remember that. You can have negative synchronicities.
Oh yeah.
But what can happen is just the identity of it, especially from an Eastern perspective, is the validation that you're on the right path. You're moving in the right direction. So, and I do mention those 3 principles, especially from Hermeticism, where you've got the law of vibration, the law of rhythm, and the law of mentalism.
Yeah.
So, and that cuts into, again, the fabric of reality itself. So we're talking about vibration and rhythm, which make up the fabric of the universe, and the consciousness that drives it, the mentalism. They're all intertwined. The 3 are intertwined. So that's when your consciousness is in sync with reality, then you begin to, I don't want to say that you begin to change the reality, but you begin to experience the reality as one with it, which appear then as the pure vibratory and rhythm forms that we see in nature. I talk about synchronicity as a song of spirit and matter in the book. So it's more of a unison or a choir between spirit and matter. So we probably don't have enough time to talk about.
Well, you'll come back, because I really do want to talk about those principles. They're key. Today what we talked about is this idea of effortless living, which could be a way of life, and you've created a book to take us step by step in creating that. And I think that we can all live our lives, to the fullest, let's say. Yeah. And even at the fullest, it can be effortless. And that's my takeaway, that, those things have always in our tradition, have mostly in our traditions living in the United States, have been mutually exclusive. Live life to the fullest means you work hard, you sweat, perspiration, not inspiration. And I think we need a new narrative, and you've written it. Thank you so much, Jason, for today. Again, give out your website and let folks know how to get a copy of the book.
Okay, to find out more about me, go to jasongregory.org, and to get a copy of the book, just go to Inner Traditions or Amazon, or you can even go to my website and find the book. So, I'm available. I'm actually on all the social media networks, on Facebook and YouTube and that, and so I'm I respond to most people. So
yeah, you do. I totally get it. I hope you will come back, because there are some things that I think are really, really important to the day and age that we live in. Thank you so much for this. Jason Gregory, everyone. Effortless Living is the book, and we did give a copy of the book away. Thank you, Benny, for doing that. We're going to take a short break, a real shorty, as I like to call it. Terrific Tuesday. Yeah, we're bringing back old school, Benny, kicking it up old school. We take a short break. We've got another hour coming up on the Dr. Pat Show, Transformation Talk Radio, and Jason rocks. We'll be right back.
The preceding audio was via a Skype call.